only capacity I was involved in this project was by being a vocal critic of it. So I don't think that this project is good for the country.
And why is that?
You've answered the question in your question. Okay, there are too many foreign. There are too many. The way it has been designed appears that it's catering to too many students. Number one, the scale is too big. Too big for the Bhutanese context. When you talk of 30,000, 40,000 college-going students, this is not Bhutan. It can happen in India, it can happen in Australia and America, but in Bhutan we don't have the capacity, the infrastructure, even the cultural depth, not depth, sorry, depth in terms of numbers of people, okay, to withstand the onslaught of that many foreigners at any given time. On the other hand, this whole education city is going to employ, it appears, more people than are currently resident in the capital of Bhutan, Thimphu. So obviously, we're going to have to import a lot of labor. And I think, again, that's going to be dangerous and difficult for us. And there are many other reasons. Yeah.
Any other come to mind?
Yeah, we start small. We go one college at a time. We don't need to aim for the. We don't need to start with the stars. We aim for the stars and we start small. You build a small college that is of the highest international standards. A college that focuses on our strengths, whether culture, environment, our type of spirituality, development philosophy, and G&H. It could be any of these. Agriculture, tourism, and then from there, perhaps you start another college. Always giving preference to Bhutanese first, investors and students. But requiring these colleges to operate at world-class levels so that it attracts the best lecturers and students also from the world over. So this is in education. But if we have whatever $1 billion we are going to invest, I think we can invest them in agriculture and in renewable energy. I mean, there are many other things.
I think the point that the Secretary of Economic Affairs, I'm of your persuasion, but the point that he made was only to do with the investment, is that it's not as though there's an opportunity cost because it's from a foreign investor who wants to invest into an education center.
Well, you don't take it just because it's available.
True.
You actively seek out other investments.
True. That
are also free. If he thinks this is free, he's wrong. Okay, this investment is not free. It's going to cost the nation.
True. I don't think he meant it was free. I meant that it wasn't allocatable to another.
Still, so just because it's not up for reallocation, does not mean we have to take it.
True.
We should decide whether it's good for us or not.
True.
If it is good, go ahead. If not, stop it and look for other investors who will invest in other areas.
True.
But this is not the only investment avenue. And even if it were the only investment avenue and the only investor, and if it was not good for the country, we should not.
True.
Okay.
Okay. So, economics, as it is popularly practiced, ignores non-market activities, which culminate in the very fabric of sustainable and distributive societies, and ultimately to the sense of community that best enables individual welfare and human development. How does G&H manage to dismantle these false dichotomies of public-private, community-individual, to give a more realistic picture of social cohesion and real living, without as it is written into policy, impinge upon these domains as well?
No. What I do know is our families and our communities are vibrant, are thriving. That said, I don't think it's because of G&H per se. It's our cultural heritage. That's the way we've always lived. And I'm not sure if G&H is that prescriptive, that calculates every individual's relationship with the market vis-a-vis his or her relationship with the society.
Sure. Has the emphasis on culture and the shift from production and material-based macroeconomic policy led to a determinable increase in social capital?
There was no shift because we don't have a market economy. The challenge is to create an economy, a stronger market economy that generates more jobs. So it was not like we had a strong economy, or we were overemphasizing the economic prerogative at the expense of social development, and we shifted from one to the other. No, it wasn't like that.
Do you think that the emphasis of culture of G&H, the approach, will be able to, as Bhutan finds its economy or develops it, do you think that it would protect against an erosion of social capital? Do you think it has the potential to? Do you think that it's doing that?
Culture is important. Families are important. Societies are important. Civilizations are important. And you undermine culture at the risk of your future, regardless of how rich the nation can become. So it looks like it's common sense. Regardless of which part of the world you come from, you want to nurture and cultivate your culture. That said, culture is not just the past, yeah? It is a way of life that is relevant today. But that one that gives you and your community a definite identity and a feeling of purpose in life.
Are technology and tradition mutually enabling or detrimental to each other?
Technology is here to stay, so you better adapt.
Do you think it's compatible with tradition?
You don't have a choice. The conditions, you cannot alter them. And technology being one of the conditions in life, you cannot alter it. And therefore, culture must be able to adapt to it. And in fact, use it. Culture must remain even relevant, no?
Yes.
In this age of super technologies.
True.
Otherwise, it is, like you said, detrimental.
True. So it's up to the ability of culture to adapt.
It's up to the people to adapt the culture, to keep it relevant. But you can't change the boundary condition. You can't, unfortunately, you can't say that we don't want technology.
Sure, that would be very Luddite and very short-lived.
I don't think it's possible.
True.
So since you can't do that, you've got to adapt your culture.
True. Okay, coming to good governance, and I hope you have a lot to say about it. So, is G&H both the vision of state and organizing principle of it? Would you say that?
G&H is, we began the session by talking about is G&H the realm of scholarly debate. So
the dangers of it receding.
So the answer to my views on your question is that we're still discussing, we're still talking about G&H. G&H means different things to different people. Until a few years ago, it was quite simple. People said, okay, G&H is basically a balance between material development and spiritual and cultural growth. It was a balance. The material progress was important, but not at the expense of society and culture. and the environment. So it was very straightforward. And that was articulated in government policies by a focus on the 4 areas that you are covering today. Socio-economic development, culture, environment, and good governance. Now, the level of debate and thought on GNH has grown. So it means different things, and people are still debating. And in terms of government, as a principle, the Constitution does not say what GNH is.
Oh, really?
It just says that the state will promote
cross-national happiness. So it's given the flexibility to...
So it's not prescriptive. The Constitution is not prescriptive in how it defines, how GNH is defined.
Okay, so it's not rigid organizing principles as per the government's autonomy, like the regime's autonomy, like different regimes can organize in different ways?
So how government is structured is different, yeah?
Okay.
But the Constitution also is clear on the environment, on culture, on spirituality, on decentralization. So perhaps we could draw from the Constitution what is consistent with what is already there with GNH.
Okay. Okay. So, do you find that GNH as a mandate of state gives successive Bhutanese governments direction and continuity?
The Constitution does that. The Constitution is very clear on what the government must do, what successive governments must do. So, and a part of that is also to allow GNH to flourish.
So you'd say that the Constitution gives direction and continuity, but that part of this direction and continuity is the preservation of an aspect of what the government needs to take care of, which is cross-national happiness.
Governments are created by political parties. Political parties will have ideologies, and ideologies will differ in the long run now. It will differ from party to party. So at the macro level, the Constitution will give guidance to any government. But at the political party level, the party ideology, which also must be consistent with the provision of the Constitution, should give direction to the successive governments if they form governments.
Okay. Coming to the party issue, that's really interesting because a friend of mine who's a very prominent advisor said that in Bhutan it's very strange because in other countries differences were the reason for political parties, but in Bhutan the founding of political parties gave way to differences.
Not yet.
What would you say about that?
Eventually I hope there are differences, but not yet. And I hope that there are differences, and differences that are not unreconcilable. You must be able to reconcile those differences. When political parties were established in Bhutan, including ours, we were established because political parties were necessary for elections to take place. Political parties were necessary for the introduction of democracy in Bhutan. Political parties were not formed because we had an agenda to promote to the people. Political parties were not formed because we had an ideology. So in that sense, the political parties that took birth, that were established, and the two that currently remain, we really don't have any firmly entrenched ideology, so to speak. So in that respect, your friend is correct. Yeah, the political parties were established first without any ideologies, and ideologies, clearly entrenched ideologies, are still not visible, but in the long run you can expect what your friend has said, differences to manifest. So you can expect different political parties to have different ideologies in the longer run.
True. Now there's also a danger of lesser differences, right? Like pettier differences. For instance, a friend of mine who's an intern was doing this focus group on democracy and elections for the Centre for Media and Democracy Promotion. And a lot of the youth were really concerned because they didn't really feel like voting because it would just cause divisions within their families. And their parents would say you should vote for a particular party because of certain connections, because Bhutan's so connected. And so a lot of them just wanted to escape it because they found that it was causing unnecessary strife. So what would the solution be to?
Solution is, first and foremost, we've got to have a decent dose of civic education. And I don't think that voting one way or the other should split communities and families.
True.
And if it does, then we need to take a serious look at the way we are implementing democracy.
So.
Just because a parent feels one way, that should not be enforced on a child.
True.
And that said, even something as basic as the parent feeling one way or the other, that should be justified, not just because we're connected. So I think we have a long way to go.
Every democracy has a long way to go, even the consolidated ones. So, is Bhutan applying a human rights G&H lens to resolving the alleged refugee crisis on the border with Nepal? There is a colonial explanation to it that has been ignored internationally that unfairly vilifies Bhutan, is there not? What is the Bhutanese perspective?
Again, a question for the government. As far as I am concerned, the international community has unfairly labeled everyone in the so-called refugee camps as refugees from Bhutan. And that has been unfair, unfortunately. Many of them have never been to Bhutan, and they entered the camps apparently for economic reasons. It just so happens that the camps are located in one of the poorest parts of the world, and for people it became an economic opportunity because the Southern Bhutanese, who are the so-called refugees, and the Nepalese are from the same stock. You can't tell one from the other. So that has led to complications, and to say that they are all refugees is wrong. The other unfortunate assumption by much of the international agency is that everyone who left Bhutan was a Bhutanese. And the whole issue was raised because many of the people who were here were never Bhutanese.